Hello everyone, this is Ur-Inannak, and I am the owner of the YouTube channel Speaking Sumerian. Unfortunately, I got locked out of my account, and when I tried to reset my password, I found out that the email I used to register it had been deleted for inactivity. Thanks a lot, mail.com. So now it's take two, and I'm using Gmail, which should be more reliable. When I uploaded my last video on that channel about the Kesh Temple hymn 2 years ago, I had about 10 subscribers and most videos got between 20 and 200 views. Looking at the channel now, it has 55 subscribers and that last video has over 1100 views. This is kinda shocking to me. Even if like 20 of those people are bots, it's still amazing to think 35 people were interested in this material and so many were watching. Which is why it's all the worse to learn my old channel is now lost. Still, I hope at least some will find their way here. I actually had been doing a fair bit of Sumerology stuff earlier this year, as I've been hoping to achieve an old ambition of mine to be published in an academic journal. And things are progressing well so far, but I got burnt out and I figured now was a good opportunity to pivot to a fun video project. So now onto the topic of today's video, ancient cryptography. Many of you may be familiar with cryptography through popular culture such as the movie Zodiac. I think Da Vinci Code features it a bit, but basically it means secret writing. It's a writing that is meant to be only readable to the insiders who know the code. Now it may surprise you to learn Sumerian scribes had their own method of cryptography, at least for a time. During the early dynastic period, master scribes had an alternate way of writing, where each cuneiform sign had one or more alternate readings, like a substitution cipher, to obscure the content of their writings. Text could be entirely obscured, slightly obscured, or even about half normal writing and half obscured. These secret writing texts were discovered about 70 years ago, and to this day the system is largely undeciphered. The reason for this is that the early dynastic Sumerian orthography is already extremely cryptic because of its abbreviative nature. Like, a lot of the texts we can only really read because there's later versions of them in normal orthography. So, when a further layer of obscurity is added, it makes things extremely difficult. The scholars who first discovered it deciphered about 5% because they were only really interested in discovering the nature of the text. And since a bit of them were written normally, they just deciphered enough to conclusively say that the texts were basically just mythological, and then gave up on going any further with it. One of the earliest things to be deciphered was the name of Enlil, which in normal orthography is written as a dinger determinative, N, and then Lil 2. In the secret orthography, these were substituted with the signs UD, GAL, and NUN, and from these signs is derived the name for the secret writing system, UD.GAL.NUN. So why was UD.GAL.NUN invented? Probably as writing became more understood by merchants, commoners. The elite scribes lost some of the elite status that came with their scribal skills, so in order to re-establish themselves as the bearers of secret knowledge, they recorded their secret stories in UD.GAL.NUN. Every UD.GAL.NUN text is from the early dynastic period with the exception of 2 tablets from the subsequent Sargonic period. And one of these, they're both from Nippur, and one of them isn't actually like a proper text, it's a cipher key. So what they did was they wrote 3 personal names in standard orthography, and then they rewrote them beside them in UD.GAL.NUN. And so it would seem that the script did not last very long, probably because it was extremely difficult to learn, and because of the upheaval of the Sargonic period. Now, there has been much progress in the decipherment in the last 20 years, but it's all unpublished, because it's the work of one man, the German master Dr. Cameron Zand. About a month ago, I contacted him trying to get his blessing to discuss his findings on YouTube, but he's not yet gotten back to me. Now, despite his work being unpublished, I do have connections in the Sumerology world, and I do have access to some of his findings. For now, I'll not be presenting any findings. However, as a way to give you a peek at UD.GAL.NUN and its mythical content, I have composed a short Sumerian text using excerpts from UD.GAL.NUN texts from what we do know and then mashing them together. So I'll be reading this mashup to you today. I'll be using reconstructed pronunciation and then classical pronunciation, as always. And sorry if my pronunciation is a bit rusty. It's been 2 years since I've done this. Okay, first the reconstructed pronunciation. Lukal kishta, lukal atsabta, en aratata, en kienkita, muta esh, erin kurmusha esh dimgal kurkuram, heshakta inimgi muta heshakta kuk muta heshakta ga kuka muta heshakta amagi muta me ur kilip inana ninkienki me ur me kilip mun ur inana ra zame khebabtuk inana zame. And now, the classical pronunciation. Lugal kishta, lugal adrabta, en aratata, en kiengita muta esh, eren kurmusha esh dimgal kurkuram, eshagta inimgi muta eshagta kug muta eshagta gakuga muta eshagta amagi muta me ur kilip inana ninkiengi me ur me kilip mun ur inana ra zame khebabduk inana zame. Okay, now to translate this. The king of Kish from Kish, the king of Adab from Adab, the lord of Arata from Arata, the lord of Kiengi, aka Sumer, from Kiengi, they went out. In the marvelous cedars of the holy place mountain was the sanctuary of the great pillar of the mountains. The returned word / answer went out from the inner house / temple. The metal went out from the inner house / temple. The pure milk went out from the inner house / temple. Freedom went out from the inner house / temple. The spirits, the gathered spirits, the spirits, all the gathered spirits. Inanna, lady of Kiengi, the spirits, the gathered spirits, all the spirits she gathered. May praise be spoken for Inanna. Praise Inanna. Now, as a bit of an interesting ending note, you'll notice that already in the UD.GAL.NUN text, they're saying Enki, Lord of Sumer. Now this is interesting because if you look at normal texts from this period, never do they use the term Kiengi to mean Sumer. And so a lot of scholars will say that this name was not applied to Sumer as early as the early dynastic period. Now, if you look at the administrative tablets of Tel Fara, which would be ancient Shuruppak, you'll see that actually Shuruppak and their allies have a military agreement, and as part of this agreement, they send soldiers to a place called Kiengi. Now, you could argue that they're just saying that they're sending these soldiers somewhere in Sumer, but more likely, especially considering the number of soldiers they send, it seems that they're sending them to a military outpost that the Alliance created called Kiengi. This would have most likely been to defend against Elamite raids, which were quite devastating at that time. So, it's an interesting theory that perhaps this outpost, Kiengi, gave its name to the Alliance itself, and then the Alliance, being an alliance of 5 or 6 major cities, being most of Sumer, gave its name to Sumer herself. So, a bit of an interesting theory there, and it would be interesting that they're already using the term Lord of Sumer, Lord of Kiengi, and I'll leave it up to your interpretation whether this is referring to the Lord of Sumer or the Lord of this outpost town. Alright, everyone, until next time, I'll wish you all the best.